On today's show, we're halfway through the Dallas Mavericks season. What do we know about this insane team that makes no sense? We'll try to make sense of it. Are they going to trade for Pascal Siakam? Are they going to trade for Kyle Kuzma? Got some more insight on that. Talk about that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Mavericks, NBA champions.
It's good, and the Mavericks have won the game.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. But the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day, leave a 5-star review, like the video, and comment anything below. Like the video as well. I'm getting more comments than likes, which makes me look very controversial. Like the video. Let me know in the comment section, would you rather go all in on Pascal Siakam or try and get a Kyle Kuzma type player? And let me know in the comment section. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And joining me, friend of the show, multiple time guest, it's Kevin Gray from 97.1, the freak. Oh, I just did it. I knew I was going to do it. What you got for
it's
me,
okay.
Kevin?
It's okay. It
We
took
just
a while
talked about that.
We did, but it took a long time for me to even get it down. But yeah, happy to be the Mavericks pre and post game host on 97.1 The Freak on the Dallas Mavericks radio network. That's right.
97.1 The Freak.
That's right. That's right.
I can just hear it in my head. Where we just listened to Mark Cuban for like an hour and a half talk about random thing, like a bunch of random stuff.
Had a lot to say.
I sent notes to the Subtext subscribers, by the way. So if you want to subscribe and get notes on things like that, Mavs rumors, all kinds of stuff, to get them sent straight to your phone, subscribe to Subtext. But today, Kevin and I are going to talk all about the Mavs halfway through the season. We'll talk about where we think that they are, the different stretches of the season. We'll talk about, do they have an elite 3-man lineup? Because I kind of think that they do. And so we'll talk about that. And we'll get into that a little bit. But I want to start here. Trade rumors. It's that time of year, Kevin. We're getting close. We're 1 month away from the All-Star game.
Yeah. My wife was asking me the other day, what are we doing for Valentine's Day? I said, well, we might be going to Indianapolis for the All-Star game. And she was like, oh, no, we're not. We are not.
Valentine's Day in Indianapolis. That's what they all say. Say.
But yeah, we're less than a month away from the NBA trade deadline. It's hard to believe that we've gotten to the halfway point games-wise in the regular season. And once we get post All-Star break, it's a sprint to the finish after that. So a lot to still sort out between now and before we get to the All-Star break, and then obviously post All-Star break, especially for this team.
Before Kevin and I spend Valentine's Day in the city of love, Indianapolis, there's been a couple of reports recently from our own Matt Moore from Locked On NBA, Locked On Nuggets, and the Action Network. He said that he's been told, Siakam has reportedly told teams that he will not commit to re-signing with any team that is not the Raptors and wants to test free agency. My question for you, Kevin, is when has that stopped the Mavericks before from trading for a guy that has not necessarily re-signed next year? Porzingis, Kyrie, I mean, they've done it several times now. Would this stop you if you're the Mavericks? Let's say if you have a package that the Raptors would take, would this stop you from trading for Pascal Siakam?
Honestly, probably not, because one of the things that you do have going for you is the fact that, Pascal Siakam played some high school ball in the DFW area in Louisville. So There's a little bit of a home connection there, if you will, in terms of what he may have the heartstrings tugged at a little bit if you do decide to trade for him. And honestly, from a business standpoint, if you're any NBA team, particularly the Mavericks, obviously in this case, you'll wait Masai Ujiri out, the czar, if you will, of the Toronto Raptors, and dare him to not trade Pascal Siakam, even with the idea that if you don't trade him, he's going to walk into free agency and you're not going to get anything for him. So if you're a team like the Mavericks, you'll say, look, this is what our best package is. We know that Siakam's not going to re-sign here this offseason, and you probably want to get something for him. So are you really going to leave whatever it is on the table without making a real decision about what you want to do with him? Otherwise, you'll just have him for the rest of the year, and you won't get anything for him. So if I'm a team, I'm waiting until we get to the 11th hour to dare Masai Ujiri not to trade Pascal Siakam. But all indications are that he's going to move him. The question is, are you willing to risk the assets to get rid of in order to have him for half a season and then try to re-sign him afterwards. If I'm the Mavericks, I would take that calculated risk, honestly.
What Siakam is doing is waiting for the Sixers or a team in free agency to give him the most money, right? Like he's waiting for that. And there is a team like the Sixers could have max money. Seems like the Pistons could have max money. I don't know that if the choice is going to the Sixers or going to the Pistons, I don't know which one you would decide. And that one, I think I know which one I would decide to go to.
Yeah.
But Masai Ujiri just did this with Fred VanVleet. Literally just did this. Didn't trade him. Lost him in free agency to the Rockets, who really overpaid him. And so if you're the Raptors, like at this point, I think you would just take anything or just take something so that you don't lose a guy for nothing. Especially if he says he's going to take he's going to take the free agency route and test his market in free agency. But on the Mavericks side, this has not scared them away before. I mean, but they've also took calculated risks before. Kristaps Porzingis, he comes in, he had injury risks. The Mavericks were willing to take the risk on the risk that he would come back, like that he would resign because they were taking a risk on him. Like there was dual risk there.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving, also dual risk there. Teams that his value had been pushed down. His value had been lower. For all of you listening that want to say, why do you guys keep talking about Kyrie like he was this, like this like terrible figure?
He was a depreciated asset when the Mavericks acquired him.
He was. You're trying to tell me that Kyrie was only worth Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, and a first-round pick, right? Like the Mavericks got him cheaper because his price had been pushed down because of some of the things that had happened in the past. The Mavericks took the risk on him because they had Jason Kidd, Nico Harrison with the relationship. So I don't know that they have the same thing with Pascal Siakam. That's the other thing about this, is that I don't know if it's the same two-way street there that they had with Porzingis, that they had with Kyrie, and that they would have with Siakam. And they would just really be betting on Luka, Kyrie, and their culture to like keep Siakam. And that risk kind of like makes me nervous. If the Mavericks, this is all hypothetical, if the Mavs had the right package, which I'm not even convinced that they do.
Yeah, and that's the part where you see what the offer would look like if you're Toronto, if the Mavericks were to offer something. If we're talking about the likes of a Tim Hardaway Jr., a Josh Green, a Jaden Hardy, whatever you want to, in combination you want to put in there, and see what that entices the Raptors to do, because no matter what, Siakam is determined to get to free agency, which he should, because it's going to only benefit him and his pocketbook, going forward from there. So the risk, I think, is there to take it, because now what you do get the opportunity to do is, and in Toronto's case, it worked out once, even though he didn't resign there. You acquired Kawhi Leonard and you wound up winning a championship. And of course, he walked off, to go to Los Angeles. If you're the Mavericks and you acquire Siakam, he now gets a chance to play alongside Kyrie and Luka Doncic, Dereck Lively, and others, and he'll get the chance to see, this is what a winning program looks like with two top 15 players in the league. Why wouldn't I necessarily want to re-sign here? And the other point being, if this ownership group is about its business, about they're willing to spend the money, even possibly going into the tax to do it, then this shouldn't be an object for them that they shouldn't want to covet, because they should theoretically want to spend to have the best team around Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, if they are true to what they are actually talking about, and if Cuban really is about making that happen in that way.
Or Pascal Siakam learned this is what it'd be like to play with two ball-dominant stars where I don't get the ball as often as I could, and so that's the risk you'd be taking. And so, to all of this, it is a risk for the Mavericks if they're going to go in on Pascal Siakam. I still hold to, I don't think the Mavs have the right package for it, but it does sound like everybody else is getting like pushed out of this. The teams that are interested, Indiana, Sacramento, Golden State, like, are those teams going to really want to push all their chips into the basket to try and get somebody that is not even going to re-sign with you? The Mavericks are more willing to take that risk because they have been in the past, right? I think that's my whole thing in all this, like Pascal Siakam talk.
Hell, they gave Porzingis a contract before he even stepped foot on the floor for them. Like, you talked about the risk, the dual risk that the Mavericks took with Kristaps Porzingis. They wound up doubling down on it by giving him a contract before he even stepped foot on the floor for them.
No clauses or anything. There's no games threshold.
Nothing. They gave him a max deal before he stepped on the floor for the Mavericks. I mean, it didn't work out the way that they hoped it would, but they are, like, to your point, they are willing to take those risks. And for Siakam and Dallas, maybe that's the one that you take. At least you would be the team to have the chance to see what that looks like with him in your uniform versus seeing him go somewhere else and then possibly make a decision from there. That would be part of it as well, as let's see what he looks like in this uniform here.
Coming up, let's talk about Kyle Kuzma, because we learned a little bit about what we think that the Wizards are asking for Kyle Kuzma. That's been one of my big questions. Are the Mavericks willing to pay that? And then we'll talk about the Mavs halfway through the season. All that and more coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. eBay Motors has the right parts for your car. Passion, drive, patience. What bring home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. I know what half those things are. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Over 122 million parts to choose from. You know they're going to fit just right, and you're going to find exactly what you're looking for with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Again, eBay Motors. Check it out, ebaymotors.com, with all the parts you need at the prices that you want. It's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. I don't know what we're winning at. I guess winning is the getting home in one piece and like keeping your car running. I guess that's the win for us, like normal drivers. I'm not racing anybody with my car. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. ebaymotors.com. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. That's how you become part of the Raccoon Squad. You just listen to the show every day. That's it. A lot of you come up to me at games, and I appreciate when you say you're part of the Raccoon Squad. It is a weird thing to hear in person, but it is also hilarious to me and great.
As long as Mavs Man doesn't come and tell you that.
Mavs Man is a daily listener of the show, and that rocked my world a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Wow. Look at there.
Came up to me and put his arm around me, and I looked over my shoulder, and there was the helmet and face of Mavs Man. I'm like, I know the basketball skin is under there. I just know it.
Wow.
We're talking about the Mavs halfway through the season. The trade deadline is coming up. Just talked about Pascal Siakam. Kyle Kuzma, according to Sam Vecenie of The Athletic. I know Sam Vecenie. I know he does have sources, so I trust this, that he said league sources say that Kyle Kuzma's current price tag to be somewhere in the vein of 2 first-round picks or the equivalent value. I'm skeptical another team will meet that price, so we'll see if the Wizards have any wiggle room in the marketplace, unless anything changes before February. If you're the Dallas Mavericks, are you looking at, could be like a Josh Green and a first-round pick for Kyle Kuzma? Is that something that you'd entertain? Would that even make the Mavericks that much better?
First of all, 2 first-round picks for Kyle Kuzma?
Yeah.
We're doing a lot here. we're doing a lot here.
He's their best player, Kevin. He's the only chance they have.
Who can't defend better than you and I these days.
He showed it with the Lakers. He defended pretty well for them. Now, since he's gone to the Wizards, he has not done that.
No, he has not. But okay, the upside here of a Kyle Kuzma on your roster, again, pairing him with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, does Kyle Kuzma theoretically increase your ceiling as a possible top 6 team, top 4 team in the West? I tend to think probably not, especially on the defensive end. But offensively, you've got another scorer that can obviously take the ball to the basket off the dribble, can shoot a little bit, obviously, as well. So, and he's going to give you some size in your front line, which the Mavericks are going to need throughout the next, second half of their season. So he provides you size, he provides you scoring, he fits maybe the height requirement, Mark Cuban, that you're looking for.
Is there one? There hasn't been one. I'll say that.
Well, he mentioned 6'8", somewhere around there. That maybe that's that fits what he's looking for. So Kyle Kuzma kind of fits the aesthetic of what maybe this franchise is looking for. But I don't know if Kuzma increases your ceiling that much more than what you already have, because he's already going to be a liability on the defensive end based off of what he brings as a player completely.
I think he can get back to being a solid to good defensive player, because he, like you said, he does have the size. He was there. Like he was a plus defender for the Lakers in that title run in the bubble. And so I think he can get back there. My issue with him has been he's never really been that good of a spot up 3-point shooter or just a 3-point shooter in general. He can get you another bucket. So there are the games where you look and go, man, the Mavs just need one more guy to get a basket. Tim Hardaway Jr. has been that so far, and it's been that when Luka has been out at times. But there still are times in games where you go, man, they just need one more guy to go get a bucket. And Kuzma can do that a little bit better than what Tim can. Kuzma's contract also goes down. So if you're looking at the difference between like a Jeremy Grant and a Kyle Kuzma, Kuzma's contract is $25.5 million, $23.5 million, $21.5 million, and then $19.5 million. So it's decreasing. It's going to look better as it goes on. He's 28, so you're getting him right in his prime. This is what I would think about for sure, especially if Sam Vecini says they want 2 first round picks. What if they don't get it? What if they only just take like a Josh Green, who could be like quote unquote an equivalent first round pick? What if a Josh Green and a Rashawn Holmes does it? That's what I'm looking at. I'm like, man, that would be really interesting to me.
Yeah, if you can make the salary work and the idea that he has a descending contract, that does make it a little bit more attractive. But the fact that he's already 28 and I'm looking at another guy in the market, Siakam, who's 29, who's already been a 2-time All-NBA, selection. I don't know if I'm weighing the two, I would try to put the best package together I could get for Siakam, but to a lesser degree, if I can find something that will make it work for Kyle Kuzma, then I would try to make that work in terms of, especially if I can get off a home salary. If I have to part with Josh Green, okay, I would probably go ahead and do that because the up and down nature of Josh Green and his game lends itself to, I need to find the highest peak for his value immediately and then move on. That way I could try to get what I could for Kyle Kuzma in that way.
Yeah, it's the we have Pascal Siakam at home would be the Kyle Kuzma trade, right? Like if you don't get Pascal Siakam, we can get, if they can get Kuzma, it would cost a lot less. An interesting one. So let me know in the comment section if you're interested in a Kyle Kuzma or a Pascal Siakam trade, and let us know about all that. All right, Kevin, let's talk about this team. This Mavericks team we're halfway through the season. It feels like the season hasn't even like fully started yet because the team hasn't been fully healthy in forever. It feels like they're 24-17. They started 8-2. They're 16-15 since. What is this team? Is this team closer to what their record says or what their record the last 31 games has said?
Yes.
Look, anyway.
I don't know because for this team, and I said it the other day, it's remarkable that through 41 games, this team has had 23 different starting lineups, but yet they're 7 games above 500. Their dependence on a 19-year-old rookie has been night and day. I believe they're 20-10 when Dereck Lively plays so far this year. So the amount of variance that you see from this team with a 19-year-old in and out of the lineup really kind of terrifies me in a lot of ways because I shouldn't have to depend that much on what Lively brings every single night. But at the same time, this team has been looking for continuity, and for the most part, they haven't been able to have it. But yet and still, they have found ways to win games, which in some ways you have to give the head coach credit for in Jason Kidd, which I don't know how that'll go over here on the show today. But at the same time, it is what it is because at some point, you've got to be able to make enough adjustments and try enough different things to find different ways to win games. And so far, this team has been able to do it. I'm just wanting to see what this team looks like, fully formed, fully healthy for a 10-game stretch to see what that looks like. You talked about the start that they got off to, 8-2, to start off the season. And it's been really kind of up and down since then. When does this team get healthy? And then what does that look like fully formed going forward from there? That's the part I think I'm most excited to see based off of when this team gets healthy for them.
Yeah, I think we know they can be good, right? Like we know that they can be good. There's a possibility. Like there's a version of this team that is good. It's just the health. When can we see that health actually like come around? And let's see that a little bit more often. The Mavs have gone on these weird stretches. Started the season 8-2, then went 3-6, then went 5-1, then went 3-6 again, then 5-2 this last homestand. It's like it really does feel like everything about this team is up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And it all does kind of coincide with the injuries and guys being out. Because remember, Kyrie missed a bunch of games. Luka has now missed some games. Lively has missed games here and there. Maxey was out for a ton. Exum has been out. Derrick Jones Jr. just missed a game. Like they've been missing multiple starters. Like you mentioned, 23 starting lineups in 41 games. Mark Follow tweeted that that's easily the most in franchise history for the Mavericks in the quote unquote first half of a season. 23 starting lineups in 41 games. That's insane.
And to throw on top of that, this team hasn't practiced since December 21st. Like no practice, and you're playing the amount of starting lineups that you have. It's remarkable that this team is 7 games above 500 halfway through the point, because if you told me that, okay, the last time this team practiced was, I believe, when they were in Los Angeles. And it's funny because they played one of their best defensive games of the season, because I think they, if I remember correctly, gave up less than 100 points to the Clippers in one of the 2 games in Los Angeles. And you thought, oh, wow, with some practice time, this team actually could be able to make some improvement on that end of the floor. And they haven't been able to practice since then. And honestly, I don't know when they'll be able to practice because the amount of back-to-backs that this team plays, they're playing every other day. The schedule has been brutal for them. And I think that's part of the interesting part of that 8-2 start is they alternated road and home games for their first 8 games of the season. So the schedule's been unkind. They haven't been able to practice. They've been dealing with injury. And yet and still, they find themselves a top 6 team in the West through 41 games. It's a remarkable thing to think about, honestly.
Schedule's been pretty nice the last 2 weeks or so. This home stretch has been good, and I'm very interested to see what they do in this next grouping of games here that we'll probably talk about in the next couple of days. But yeah, I'm really interested in that. Coming up, I want to talk about if the Mavs have an elite trio. Luka, Kyrie, and Lively. How do they stack up against some of the best trios on other teams that are the best in the NBA? Let's talk about all that and more coming up. Today's episode brought to you by BetterHelp. Everybody has something in their life that they need to talk about, that you have in your life that you need to work through, that you have, some anxiety thing that's just holding you back from something, that you're frustrated with not being able to reach your potential, all kinds of different things that just hold us back at times. If you're trying to think about therapy, if you're thinking about, I just need somebody to talk to, it doesn't have, therapy has this connotation that you have this trauma you have to work with. It's not always that. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You can schedule it whenever you want. I've used BetterHelp before, and I've loved the ability to schedule something exactly when I need it, to find the right time and all that. Again, entirely online. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made, but visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Today's episode also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds and spreads and all kinds of things that you can get in on the action. Mavs Lakers. It opens up Mavs as a 2-point underdog on the road. Interesting to me. Maybe Luka plays in that one. Maybe he doesn't. We'll see at this point. You can check out that one and see what else they have over at FanDuel. So check out FanDuel.com/LockedOn. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. So place a $5 bet on the Mavs to beat the Lakers. What are they? Plus 110 on the money line. So you can put money on that. You get $150 in bonus bets that you can use anywhere else. And check out FanDuel.com/LockedOn and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, Kevin, we're talking about the Mavs halfway through the season. This team has made no sense for the last month or 2 months or so, basically. But I think they may have an elite trio, an elite 3-man lineup. Luka, Kyrie, and Dereck Lively. They've only played 16 games together. It's not enough. It's not enough games. It's been because of injury, pretty much. But so far, they have 122 offensive rating and 111 defensive rating, meaning points scored and allowed per 100 possessions. That's an 11 net rating. That's very good for that lineup that has only played, not a lot, a rookie center and 2 guys that did not play well together last year, according to the numbers. They've been very good. What has been good? What has worked about that Luka, Kyrie, Lively trio? Let's start there.
Well, I think part of what's made it interesting is, for Lively to start off with, the growth that he has shown. He's going to continue to learn how to play without fouling, being in those situations where he has to be able to remain on the floor and work through those things to be able to be an effective part, of their strategy defensively. But he's been a terrific rebounder for them. You saw the difference that he made in the game against the Pelicans the other day, where his offensive rebounding was critical for this team, and he provides an element of size and length that they just simply hadn't had at the center position. And we talk about, the ability to rim run with Luka Doncic, his ability to be a really good passer for a guy that's 19 years old. His passing out of the short roll has been really good for him. He's got a level of IQ from an offensive standpoint that has even surprised me so far this year. But he provides them, with that trio, an element where Luka's going to be your 3-level scorer. Kyrie's going to be your fantastic shot creator and maker most nights on the offensive end. But now teams have to make decisions about how they're going to defend those 3, whether it be Luka and Lively in pick and roll situations where he's able to roll to the basket, or how you defend Kyrie Irving, because if you're going to send multiple guys on Luka, next you know, Kyrie Irving is going to be able to take you off the dribble or knock down open shots as well. So you're playing a lot of advantage basketball, if you will, with those three on the floor together, especially on the offensive end. And then for Lively on the defensive end, being able to hopefully try to start to more erase some of those things where there may be mistakes on the defensive end. But you give Luka and Kyrie Irving credit so far for the amount of effort that they're showing on that end of the floor. But those three together provide, I think, the balance that you're looking for a type of trio that could do things on both ends of the floor.
He's their best defensive player, Lively is.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not even close.
It kind of just comes down to that. They're 5 points per 100 possessions better defensively when he's on the court. Their defensive rating is 114 points per 100 possessions allowed when he's on the court. And with this trio, it's 111. So it's even better when all those guys play together, and like you have Lively on the floor. The Mavs just needed a guy like this for so long. I mean, Mavs fans have been asking for it, for just a guy that can rebound, defend, block shots, do all that. And finally, they get it in this rookie who has just been so awesome. I compare him to some of the other elite trios, though. If you're on YouTube, you can see this chart. I'll send it. You can go check it out if you're on the podcast as well. But Luka, Kyrie, and Lively, they played 16 games together, only 235 minutes. So only playing just under 15 minutes a game together. You compare that to some of the other best lineups, like around like teams that are top 7. Like Jokic, Murray, and MPJ are one of the best lineup, like 3-man lineups in the NBA. Almost a 17 net rating. They're playing 22 and a half minutes together. Like they're playing 8 more minutes per game than Luka, Kyrie, and Lively are playing. You look at Giannis, or you look at even Harden and Kawhi and Paul George. They've played 26 games together compared to Luka, Lively, and Kyrie, who have only played 16 games together. They played 10 more games, and he got traded mid-season. Like, you just look at my point in all this is, if you look at this trio compared to some of the other best trios on the 7 best teams in the NBA, the Mavs have one. Like, they have one of these elite trios. They just got to play them more together and have to like get them on the court more. And it starts with injuries, first of all.
Yeah, and that's been the biggest thing, is continuity and health. Once they are able to hopefully establish some of that, now we can see more time for those three together. And all that's going to do is help the chemistry of those three get better throughout the course of the year. And also with Lively, continue to gain trust to be able to be dependent upon in crucial minutes where he can remain on the floor and not get into foul trouble. That will extend that time that much more for those three to be able to play together and get those kinds of minutes, especially in crucial situations that they'll need down the stretch.
The Mavs also stagger Luka and Kyrie a lot. They have to. Yeah. They really only play together at the beginning of the game, the beginning of the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter. And Lively hasn't closed as many games because of the foul trouble you said, also because of matchups. They've gone small at times and tried to put some more, some other guys out there. And so that's something to also think about as well, is how much they're closing, because it's hard to try and like play these guys together more if they're only playing together like 3 times basically a game because of the staggering.
Yeah. And part of that too is, we talked about a little bit earlier, their inability to have practice time. These three can't even gain the kind of chemistry together because they're not even on the floor, even in practice time, to be able to work on different things that will allow them to be able to have some of those things play out in those situations where you could hopefully develop more time for them to be in the rotation together, so that you can see what that looks like to put other teams in mismatches and situations where they have to defend what they're doing versus having it the other way around.
So we know that they have an elite trio. We know that they need to play that group more together. And we know that they can be good, I think, so far. I think halfway through the season, we know that they can be good. They're still a little too reliant on threes. Their defense seems to have an on-off switch, I think. But they can like figure out a way to play really good defense at times. So like we do know some things about this team. It's just when and where those things show up seems to have been the thing that eludes us. They get beat by teams that don't have their best players, and they beat teams with their best players. It's just a weird team so far.
I mean, the Pelicans game was a perfect example of that. They hold the Pelicans to 17 points in the first quarter, their lowest point total for an opponent in any quarter so far this year. Then in the middle 2 quarters, they give up 42 and 40 points, where they give up 82 points in the second and third quarters combined, and then they still wind up winning the game by 5 at the end. Like, that game was a perfect microcosm of what this team has been at the high levels of them defensively, or what they've been in terms of being how poor they've been defensively at times, and they still have found a way to win games to be where they are, because you have, at least in this game, with Tim Hardaway Jr. and Kyrie Irving going off for 40 points apiece. But that game was, I think, a perfect example of why there's a lot of people that may trust this team in certain aspects and why a lot of folks can't trust them at all because of the variance that we've seen so far from this team, whether it be within a 5 to 10 game stretch or quarter to quarter, because sometimes you don't know which team you're going to get within the same game based off of what they do sometimes.
You know, Nate, to hear a weird stat about this team this year. Their offense is 2 points per 100 possessions better than last season. So they're a better offense than they were last season, at least more efficient. And they're 4 spots ranked lower in the NBA. They were 6th in offense last year at 117 points per 100 possessions. This year, they're 10th at 119.
And they're 2 points better than what they were last year.
They're 2 points better this year, and they're 4 spots ranked lower than they were last year. Their defense is about a half a point worse than last year. So their defense is technically worse than last year, which seems weird considering all the things we just talked about Lively, Exum, Dereck Jones Jr. being good. So their defense is about a half point worse, and they're 5 spots better than they were last year. They're 18th in defense. Last year they were 23rd. So the league has just changed all of a sudden, and that's one of the reasons why the Mavericks have been able to win. Is like everybody's defense got really bad this year because offense has just gotten way better.
I mean, we talked about this, anyone who's covered the Mavericks or talked about this team the question was, can they play somewhere in the middle of average defense? Can you be between 15 and 19 by the time we get to season's end? And if you are, you're going to be most likely a top 10 team offensively this year. That should give you a chance to win between 45 to 50 games in what we see in the West so far. And right now, they're 24-17, 7 games above 500. So by the time you get to the end of the year, you do the math, they could be right there where they're supposed to be at that point.
Yeah, you just the Mavs played the exact same kind of defense they played last year, and then all of a sudden they just stumbled into the fact that their terrible defense last year became average this year.
Yes.
That's all we needed for the whole league to change, and now we're just
right.
We're an average defense, even though we're playing terribly. Go listen to Kevin Gray on 97.1 The Freak pre and post game on every Mavs game.
Every Mavs game on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network, 97.1 The Freak, and you can subscribe to my channel at Kevin Gray Sports on YouTube as well. So make sure you hit that subscribe button there. But yeah, every single game, regular season, postseason, however long that will be for this team, every day for the Mavericks for sure. 97.1 The Freak.
There it is. Kevin Gray, thanks so much for joining with us, guys. We will be back tomorrow. Lakers, Mavs. Go check out WFAA. 6:30 on WFAA. Me, Joe Trahan, and the legend Nancy Lieberman previewing Mavs Lakers on WFAA. I'll be in studio. They're making me wear like a jacket and stuff. So
look at you getting cleaned up. Good for you.
Yeah, so if you have WFAA or you're able to watch WFAA, go check out that channel. 6:30 on Wednesday. And yeah, watch a pregame show before the ESPN pregame show. So I'll be on the same channel as the Mavs. How about that? That'll be fun. Again, check it out. We'll have a post game that day as well. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.